My boss fired me in the morning. By lunch, his badge didn't work. I'm standing in the center of the office, holding a half-empty coffee cup as my boss, Blake Lawson, announces to 30 people that I'm being terminated for insubordination. His voice is calm, smug, rehearsed, like this is some kind of performance review instead of a firing. Laughter flickers at the edges of the room from people too scared to stay silent. My throat tightens. I don't defend myself. The words I want to scream stay locked behind my teeth. Instead, I set my coffee cup down on the nearest desk with a soft click that somehow sounds louder than Blake's voice. Is that all? I ask. Blake smiles. It's the same smile he uses with clients, all charm and confidence. We'll need your badge and laptop before you leave. I nod once. The faces around me blur together. Some look uncomfortable. Others won't meet my eyes. A few look relieved it's not them standing here. I turn toward my desk without another word, my heels clicking against the tile floor in the sudden silence. The elevator doors won't open fast enough. Behind me, I hear the office returning to normal. Keyboards clicking. Phones ringing. Life moving on like I was never there. My hands are shaking as I press the button again, but my mind isn't. This is how they wanted to do it. Public. Humiliating. Final. Fine. Let them. The doors finally slide open, and I step inside. My reflection stares back at me from the polished steel. My name is Haley Brooks. I'm 29 years old, and until 3 minutes ago, I was the person everyone came to when something needed fixing. The quiet problem solver. Blake's right hand. I should have known what that really meant. As the elevator descends, I whisper to myself, this isn't how my story ends. The doors open to the lobby. I walk through, badge and laptop in my bag, head high. Security doesn't stop me. They never do when someone's already been broken. But I'm not broken. I'm just getting started. 3 months ago, everything was different. I was the golden employee, the one Blake called into his office to fix his mistakes. The one he praised in meetings while taking credit for my work behind closed doors. I remember the first time he did it. We'd landed the Patterson account after I spent 2 weeks redesigning their entire workflow system. Blake presented my proposal to the client without changing a single word. When they signed, he stood in front of the whole company and talked about his vision, his strategy, his success. My name wasn't mentioned once. I told myself it didn't matter. Team effort. Company success. All the corporate phrases that make you swallow your pride. I went back to my desk and kept working, kept solving problems, kept making Blake look good. Everyone told me I was lucky to work for him. Blake Lawson, the youngest department head in company history. Charismatic. Connected. Destined for the executive suite. I should have paid more attention to how he got there. The turning point came on a Tuesday afternoon. Blake leaned against my desk, grinning like we were old friends instead of boss and employee. His cologne was too strong, his tie perfectly knotted, his confidence filling the space around him. You make me look good, Brooks, he said. The way he said it made my stomach twist. Not grateful. Not appreciative. Possessive. Like I was a tool he'd discovered and planned to use until I broke. I forced a laugh, said something about teamwork, and waited for him to leave. After he walked away, I started doing something I should have done from day one. I began saving every email. Every project file. Every piece of evidence that proved whose ideas were whose. I created a folder on my personal cloud storage and labeled it backup. I told myself it was just being cautious. Protecting my work. But deep down, I think I already knew. Something was coming. Something bad. 2 weeks later, I found it. The thing that would change everything. I was preparing a quarterly report for the Sterling client when the numbers didn't make sense. According to Blake's data, our team had improved their processing efficiency by 47% in 3 months. It was impossible. I'd worked on that account. The improvements were good, maybe 15%, but nowhere near what Blake claimed. I pulled up the original reports. Then Blake's revised versions. Then the emails he'd sent to upper management. My hands went cold as I compared them side by side. He'd fabricated everything. Changed numbers. Invented metrics. Created success that never existed. It wasn't just the Sterling account. I found 3 others with the same pattern. Impossible results. Inflated numbers. Lies stacked on lies, all designed to make Blake look like a miracle worker. I sat at my desk until midnight, documenting everything. Screenshots. Comparison charts. Email timestamps. I saved it all in my backup folder, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. At 11:47 p.m., I made the biggest mistake of my career. I sent Blake an email. Polite. Professional. Naive. Hey Blake, I think there's a discrepancy in the Sterling report. Want me to fix it before it goes out to the client? I thought I was helping. I thought that's what a good employee did. Found problems and fixed them before they became disasters. I hit send and went home, proud of myself for catching the error. I fell asleep thinking Blake would thank me in the morning. Maybe even acknowledge my attention to detail in front of the team. I pictured him pulling me aside, embarrassed about the mistake, grateful I'd saved him from looking bad. Instead, I woke up to silence. No reply. No acknowledgement. Just an empty inbox and a growing knot in my stomach that told me something was very, very wrong. I got ready for work slower than usual, checking my phone every few minutes. Nothing. The silence felt deliberate. Calculated. Heavy. I walked into the office at 8:52 a.m. with my usual coffee. The energy felt different immediately. People were whispering. Clusters of co-workers stood by the break room, their voices dropping when they saw me. Blake's office door was closed, but I could see him through the glass wall, talking on the phone. His expression was intense, focused. When his eyes met mine, he looked away quickly. My desk felt like an island in the middle of a storm. I set my coffee down and logged into my computer, trying to act normal. Trying to convince myself I was imagining things. At 9:02 a.m., my phone rang. Internal extension. HR. Haley, could you come to conference room B for a quick chat? The voice was professional, neutral. Too neutral. My hands went numb. Sure. Be right there. I stood up, and suddenly everyone was very busy with their screens. Nobody looked at me. Nobody asked what was wrong. They already knew. Conference room B was small, windowless, the kind of room where bad news happened. When I walked in, I found Blake already there, sitting across from Vanessa Cole, our HR director. A manila folder sat on the table in front of him. Have a seat, Haley, Vanessa said, gesturing to the empty chair. I sat. Blake wouldn't meet my eyes. That's when I knew. Vanessa opened the folder and slid papers across the table. My emails. Printed out. Highlighted. Arranged to look like something they weren't. We've received concerning reports about your conduct, she began. Specifically, emails that suggest you've been undermining management and questioning leadership decisions inappropriately. My stomach dropped. I stared at the papers. My words, twisted. The email about the discrepancy made to look like insubordination. Other messages, taken out of context, arranged to build a case against me. That's not what those emails mean, I said. My voice sounded far away. I was trying to help. Blake finally spoke. Haley, I've tried to mentor you, but this pattern of behavior is unacceptable. Pattern. The word hung in the air like poison. I think the team should be informed, Blake said, looking at Vanessa. For transparency. My blood went cold. That's not necessary. I disagree, Blake replied smoothly. This affects everyone. They deserve to know why we're making this decision. Vanessa hesitated. I could see her weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, she nodded. If you think that's best. That's how I ended up standing in the center of the office 15 minutes later, watching my career end in front of 30 people. Blake's voice was steady as he explained that I was being terminated for insubordination. For questioning his authority. For behavior unbecoming of the team. The humiliation burned through me like fire. But something else was happening too. Something cold and clear and sharp. I stopped feeling sorry for myself. Started memorizing faces. Started planning. When Blake finished his speech, he added, "We wish you the best, Haley." I didn't respond. I just walked to my desk, packed my things, and left. The best was coming. Just not for him. Outside, the morning air hit my face like a slap. I stood on the sidewalk, holding a cardboard box with my desk plant and a few personal items. My badge and laptop were already surrendered. My access revoked. My identity erased from the system. People rushed past me, heading into the building for their normal Tuesday. None of them knew what had just happened. None of them cared. I pulled out my phone and dialed HR. Vanessa answered on the second ring. Could you email me all termination documentation for my records? I kept my voice calm, professional, like this was routine. She hesitated. Just for a second. But I heard it. Of course. I'll send it this afternoon. Thank you. I hung up before she could say anything else. That hesitation told me everything. She knew something was off. Maybe not the full truth, but enough to make her uncomfortable. I filed that information away, adding it to the growing list of things that didn't add up about this morning. At home, I set the cardboard box on my kitchen counter and opened my laptop. My personal laptop, not the company one they'd taken. The one with all my backup files. I started organizing. Every fabricated chart Blake created. Every doctored metric. Every impossible success he'd claimed. The Sterling account. The Morrison deal. The Westfield project. All of it was there, documented with timestamps and original versions for comparison. 3 months of quietly saving evidence. 3 months of being careful. It all led to this moment. My phone buzzed. A text from Quinn, my work friend. You okay? That was brutal. I typed back. I'm fine. Better than fine. She sent back a shocked emoji. You're scary calm. I smiled at my screen. Calm was exactly what I needed to be. Another text came through, this one from my brother. Want me to post about this? Blast him online? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The temptation was real. Viral drama. Public shaming. Watching Blake's reputation crumble in real time. But no. Viral drama fades. Real justice lasts. Thanks, but I've got this, I replied. I spent the next hour building a document. Clean. Professional. Undeniable. I included side-by-side comparisons of Blake's reported numbers versus actual results. Screenshots of his emails claiming credit for my work. Evidence of fabricated client success stories. The most damning piece was the Sterling account. Blake had sent a glowing report to the CEO last month, claiming unprecedented results. But I had the real data. The actual improvements were modest, respectable, but nowhere near what Blake reported. More importantly, I had the email trail showing Blake knew the truth. He'd seen my original report. Had access to the real numbers. He'd chosen to lie anyway. I saved the document 3 times, in 3 different locations. Cloud storage. USB drive. Email draft. Then I noticed something else in my files, a client invoice from 6 months ago. The Caldwell Corporation account. Blake had reported massive cost savings for them, used it to justify his promotion to department head. But the invoice showed something different. We'd actually gone over budget. The client had complained. Blake had buried it. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Haley Brooks? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yes? This is Patricia Wu from Innovate Solutions. I heard about your situation today. My heart sped up. Innovate Solutions was our biggest competitor. How did you hear? This industry is smaller than you think, she said. I also know your work. The Patterson account redesign? That was brilliant. I'm calling to see if you'd be interested in discussing opportunities with us. I sat down hard on my couch. I was just fired this morning. I know. And I know Blake Lawson took credit for your work. We've been watching that pattern for a while. She paused. We value people who do the actual work, not just talk about it. Would you be open to a conversation? Yes, I said, not even hesitating. Absolutely yes. We scheduled a call for tomorrow. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. But I wasn't done with Blake yet. I opened my carefully built document and read through it one more time. Every piece was solid. Verifiable. Damning? The question was what to do with it. I could send it to HR, but Vanessa had already chosen Blake's side this morning. I could send it to the CEO, but he trusted Blake enough to promote him. Would he believe me? Then I remembered something. Last year, the company had hired an external auditing firm after some financial irregularities in another department. They'd been thorough, professional, and completely independent from company politics. I pulled up their website. Checked their contact information. They specialized in corporate fraud investigations. My finger hovered over the send button. Once I did this, there was no going back. Blake wouldn't just be embarrassed. He'd be investigated. Possibly prosecuted if the fabricated reports had influenced investor decisions or client contracts. I thought about this morning. Standing in front of 30 people while Blake destroyed my reputation. The smug smile on his face. The way he twisted my honest email into evidence of insubordination. I hit send. At 10:37 a.m., I walked to the cafe across from my old office building. I ordered my usual vanilla latte and sat by the window, watching the entrance. My hands had finally stopped shaking. People streamed in and out, heading to meetings, grabbing coffee, living their normal work lives. I felt disconnected from it all, like I was watching from underwater. My phone buzzed. An email notification. The auditing firm had received my message and would review the materials. They'd be in touch within 48 hours if they found cause for investigation. I sipped my latte. It tasted better than usual. Through the window, I could see the building's lobby. The security desk. The elevator banks. The glass doors with the company logo etched into them. I'd walked through those doors every day for 3 years. I wouldn't miss them. Another email arrived. This one from the CEO's office. My breath caught. Ms. Brooks, we've received some additional information regarding your termination. Could you be available for a call tomorrow morning at 9? I read the email 3 times. Additional information. What did that mean? Had the auditors already contacted them? Had someone else come forward? I typed a reply. Yes, I'm available. Thank you. Professional. Calm. Giving nothing away. My phone immediately rang. It was Quinn again. Something weird is happening, she said, her voice low. Blake just got called into the CEO's office. He looked really nervous. I gripped my phone tighter. When? Like, 5 minutes ago. And Haley, the CEO asked for all the files from the Sterling account. Your original files, not Blake's reports. My heart was pounding now. How do you know? I heard him tell his assistant. Everyone's talking about it. Something's going on. I thanked Quinn and hung up. Opened my laptop. Checked the auditing firm's email again. They'd sent it at 10:15 a.m. The CEO's office contacted me at 10:22 a.m. That was too fast, the coincidence. Someone had already been suspicious. My documentation just confirmed what they were already investigating. At 11:43 a.m., I was still sitting in the cafe when I saw him. Blake walked toward the building entrance, his phone pressed to his ear. Even from across the street, I could see the tension in his shoulders. He reached the glass doors and pulled out his badge. I leaned forward, my coffee forgotten. He swiped his badge against the reader. Nothing happened. He tried again. The light stayed red. Blake stepped back, confused. He swiped a 3rd time. Still red. Through the glass, I could see Vanessa from HR walking across the lobby toward him. She wasn't smiling. Blake's expression shifted from confusion to anger to something else. Something that looked like panic. He was gesturing at his badge, pointing at the reader, his voice rising even though I couldn't hear the words. Vanessa said something. Blake went very still. Then he slammed his palm against the glass door. The sound didn't reach me across the street, but I felt it anyway. People in the lobby were staring now. The security guard stood up from his desk. For the first time since I'd known Blake Lawson, he was the one on display. My phone buzzed. A text from Quinn. OMG. They just escorted Blake out. 2 HR people. He looked furious. I watched through the cafe window as Blake disappeared from view, Vanessa and another HR rep on either side of him. They weren't touching him, weren't forcing him, but their presence was unmistakable. This was an escort, not a conversation. Another text. This one from someone I didn't know well, a guy from accounting. Did you hear? Blake's badge was deactivated. They're investigating something. The news was spreading. Within minutes, my phone was full of messages. Everyone wanted to know what was happening. If I knew anything. If this had to do with my firing. I turned my phone face down and finished my coffee. Watched the building entrance for another 20 minutes. Blake didn't come back. At 12:04 p.m., my phone rang. HR. Haley, this is Vanessa. We'd like to discuss your situation. Some new information has come to light regarding your termination. Would you be available to come in tomorrow morning? I let the silence stretch for a moment. What kind of information? I'd prefer to discuss it in person. We'd like to talk about reinstatement options. Reinstatement. My chest tightened. I appreciate that, Vanessa. But no, thank you. She seemed genuinely surprised. You don't want your job back? I want an apology. I want my reputation restored. I want everyone who watched Blake humiliate me this morning to know the truth. I kept my voice steady. But I don't want to work somewhere that let it happen in the first place. There was a long pause. I understand. For what it's worth, Haley, I'm sorry. We should have investigated before taking action. Should have. The words were too little, too late. Will you at least come in to complete the paperwork? We'll need to process your separation differently now. I'll be there at 10 tomorrow, I said, and hung up. I sat back in my chair, my hands shaking again but for a different reason. Vindication felt strange. Lighter than I expected. Not triumphant, just quietly certain. Another text arrived. This one from the auditing firm. We've opened an investigation based on your documentation. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll be in touch as the process moves forward. I closed my eyes. It was really happening. The next morning, I dressed carefully. Professional but not apologetic. I wasn't going back to beg. I was going back to close a chapter. The office felt different when I walked in at 9:58 a.m. People stared, but not like yesterday. Yesterday they'd looked away, embarrassed or relieved or scared. Today they looked curious. Sympathetic. A few people actually smiled. Quinn met me by the elevators. You're the talk of the entire building. Blake's being audited for fraud. They're reviewing 3 years of his reports. Good, I said simply. In the conference room, Vanessa had new paperwork. Not termination for insubordination. Separation by mutual agreement with a severance package that was significantly larger than standard. The company would like to settle this quietly, she explained. We acknowledge that your termination was based on incomplete information. I read through the papers. It was generous. Probably designed to prevent a lawsuit. I'll have my lawyer review this, I said. I didn't have a lawyer yet, but Vanessa didn't need to know that. She nodded. Of course. Take your time. As I left the building, I felt my phone buzz. The call I'd scheduled with Innovate Solutions. Haley, it's Patricia Wu. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Actually, your timing is perfect. We talked for 40 minutes. About her company's culture. About valuing the people who do the actual work. About a position they'd been looking to fill, Director of Operations, that matched my skills exactly. The salary was 30% higher than what I'd been making. The title was 2 levels above where I'd been. They wanted me to start in 3 weeks. I'll need to think about it, I said, even though my answer was already yes. Of course. Take your time. But Haley? I've been in this industry for 20 years. I know talent when I see it. I also know what it looks like when someone's been taking credit for that talent. She paused. You deserve better than what happened to you. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a long moment. 2 days ago, I'd been fired. Today, I had a job offer that would change my career trajectory completely. Blake had tried to destroy me. Instead, He'd set me free. The next week moved in a blur. I accepted the offer from Innovate Solutions. Signed the severance agreement with my old company after a lawyer reviewed it and declared it solid. Started preparing for my new position. Through Quinn, I heard updates about Blake. The investigation had expanded. They'd found evidence of fabricated reports going back 3 years. Client complaints that had been buried. Budgets that didn't match his claimed results. The CEO had personally apologized to the clients Blake had misled. The company's stock had taken a small hit when news of the internal investigation leaked. Blake's badge hadn't worked that day because he'd been placed on administrative leave pending the investigation's outcome. 2 weeks later, he was formally terminated. Unlike my firing, his was done quietly. No audience. No public humiliation. Just a security escort to clear out his desk after hours. I wondered if he thought about me when it happened. If he remembered standing in front of everyone while he destroyed my career. If he understood that this was his fault, not mine. My first day at Innovate Solutions felt surreal. I had an office with a window. A team that actually listened when I spoke. A boss who introduced me to clients as the brilliant mind behind the Patterson account redesign. My real work, finally attached to my real name. During lunch, I drove past my old office building. Not because I missed it, but because I wanted to see it from the outside looking in. The logo was still there. The glass doors still gleamed. Life went on. I thought about Blake, probably at home now, updating his LinkedIn profile, trying to figure out how to explain a termination for fraud to future employers. I thought about all the people whose work he'd stolen over the years. All the careers he'd derailed to build his own. I didn't feel sorry for him, but I didn't feel angry anymore either. Just distant. Like he was part of a story I'd finished reading. That afternoon, I led my first project meeting. Presented my ideas. Heard people engage with them, build on them, treat them like they mattered. Nobody took credit. Nobody twisted my words. Nobody made me feel small. 6 weeks after my firing, I received a LinkedIn notification. Blake had posted something. Against my better judgment, I clicked. It was a generic post about resilience and learning from mistakes. About how setbacks make us stronger. The comments were sparse, mostly from people who didn't know what had really happened. Quinn sent me a screenshot of something else. An internal email at my old company. They were implementing new reporting requirements. All project metrics had to be verified by at least 2 team members. All client reports required peer review before submission. Blake's fraud had changed the entire company's culture. The cost of rebuilding trust would take years. I closed LinkedIn and opened my current project files. We were pitching to a major client next week, and I wanted everything perfect. Not inflated. Not fabricated. Just genuinely excellent work that I could be proud of. My phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa at my old company. I thought you should know. Blake's case has been referred to the district attorney's office. Some of the fabricated reports may have influenced investor decisions. They're considering fraud charges. I stared at the message. Criminal charges. Blake could face actual jail time. I didn't respond to Vanessa's message. It wasn't my story anymore. I'd done my part by documenting the truth. What happened next was up to prosecutors and lawyers and systems bigger than me. Instead, I focused on my work. On building something real. On being the kind of leader I'd wished Blake had been. 3 months later, I was sitting in my office when an email arrived. It was from a young woman named Casey, a junior analyst at my old company. She'd found my contact through LinkedIn. I just wanted to thank you, she wrote. I heard what happened with Blake. How you reported the fraud even though you'd just been fired. It made me realize I needed to speak up too. I've been documenting some irregularities in my department, and because of you, I know I'm not crazy for being concerned. You showed me that honesty matters, even when it costs you something. I read her email 3 times. Then I wrote back, offering to talk if she ever needed advice. At my desk, I had a coffee mug someone had given me as a welcome gift. It said "Know Your Worth" in simple black letters. My phone buzzed. Another LinkedIn notification. Blake's profile had been updated. His employment status was now listed as seeking new opportunities. I closed the app, took a sip of coffee, got back to work. Sometimes the loudest victory is the quiet knowledge that you told the truth when it mattered. That you chose integrity over comfort. That you walked away from something toxic and built something better. Blake fired me in the morning. By lunch, his badge didn't work. But the real story wasn't his fall. It was my rise. And that story was just beginning.